guys, it's Reagan and welcome to the start of another reading vlog. This reading vlog I'm really extra excited for because it's going to be a very cozy oriented vlog in which I'm basically going to be trying to read as many cozy books that I can read in this single week. Clay is actually out of town, so I'm taking it as an opportunity to basically hole up with my Switch and books and try to catch up on my reading goal for the year. Before we dive into the books I plan to read, first a word from this video's sponsor. Friends, we're in the kitchen because this video is sponsored by a product I personally have been loving for just about a year now, and that is AG1 by Athletic Greens. Before I dive into the details themselves, I of course have a crazy great offer with them. Click the link in my description. You're able to basically get 5 free travel packets of AG1 as well as a year supply of E3K2 with your first order. Now, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. When it comes to like nutrition, I'm kind of a dummy. I feel like there's like so many different options and choices out there, but personally I knew for my own personal well-being, immunity, and all of that stuff, I wanted to integrate something in my life that was kind of like an all-in-one situation, which is how I initially discovered AG1, and it's been an absolute game changer ever since. Basically, if you're not familiar, AG1 is a nutritional drink that has over 75 plus nutrients all packed in one easy, convenient thing that you just drink basically daily. In terms of adding it into your routine, it's honestly pretty seamless for me. Overall, I'm all about simplicity, and adding AG1 to my just everyday routine was super seamless because I know if it wasn't easy, I would not do it. That's just the kind of person I am. If it's not like 1, 2, 3 done, it's off the list after like 1 week. Basically, all I do with AG1 is I take 1 scoop of this powder, I plop it into my glass of choice, add a bit of cold water. Usually this is kind of how I consume it on a daily basis, shake it up, drink it in the morning, often before I eat breakfast. Honestly, you can mix this pretty easily into smoothies. Clay and I do that pretty often. It's just a great way to sort of sneak in a bunch of like necessary things that your body thrives on, which I know I need based on how many like hot Cheetos I consume on a daily basis, like a nice nutrient buffer to all of that Cheeto dust, you know? It's just a really convenient and foolproof way to ensure you're getting all the necessary sort of vitamins you need to support all sorts of different things, from immunity to cognitive function. If y'all are interested in learning more about AG1, which I do really recommend to read over all of the ingredients and everything before deciding to see if this is right for you, I'll leave a link down below to their website. I also have a really great offer code. Basically, with your first purchase, you get a year's supply of D3K2, which is like an immunity supporting little droplet they have, some free travel packets of AG1, which is super handy just to throw in your suitcase. I feel like travel is a time where I am very much off my routine, so it's cool that I'm able to bring these along with me. But without further ado, let's go ahead and chat about the 4 books that are on my TBR. So as I said, I hope to read 4 books. First off, I have Age of Swords by Michael J. Sullivan, which is book 2 to the Legends of the First Empire series, which I started last month and just honestly fell in love with. I actually only have about 150 pages left of this book. This will be my initial like priority for this vlog because I am truly almost done. I'm flying through this. I'm loving it. It's such a great extension and build off of the first installment. Very, very classic fantasy, and I truly feel like I've discovered a new fantasy favorite. From there, I want to read the entirety of Amari and the Great Game, which is book 2 to B.B. Alston's middle grade series. I loved the first book in this series, it being Amari and the Night Brothers. It's such a creative and wonderful middle grade series centering a fantastic main character. It's set in this place called the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs and combines like trial, magic school elements with like bureaucracy and government. It's such a fascinating setup. Again, I'm really looking forward to see where the story is going to take off. Middle grade always feels very cozy to me due to its like characters and just how creative and whimsical they tend to be, so I feel like I will fly through this. Next up, I have Alloy of Law by Brandon Sanderson. I want to start my reread of this era 2 of Mistborn ahead of the new release of the 4th book. It's also not very long, so I feel like it's one I'll be able to sort of fly through. I've already read this book twice, so it's a comforting read for me. I really enjoy the characters and just the writing. It's not like a mind-blowing book, but I feel like it's a lot of fun, and the series itself really grows on itself, so I'm looking forward to getting back into this world. And then lastly, I'm reading The Golem and the Genie by Helene Wecker. I am listening to the audiobook of this, and I'm already kind of in the midst of this because I do plan on doing doing some gaming this week, I will be listening alongside the gaming with this book, which is just absolutely stunning so far. I love the narrator, I love the quality of the story, just everything about it is so engaging. But this is my TBR for this video. Quite the range of stories, I would say, but I'm looking forward to picking up each and every single one of them. As it stands, it is currently Tuesday afternoon. Actually, it's lunchtime. So I'm gonna set you down and make lunch now, but I wanted to start the vlog, and then the big plan today is actually to get a lot of reading in. Looking forward to finishing the Age of Swords. It's such a, just really hooked me so far as a fantasy series, and I'll talk more about it once I get to it. But let's make some grilled cheeses and tomato soup because it's a little gloomy outside. Feels like the perfect winter holiday lunch. Grilled cheese and tomato soup supremacy. Okay, I got some new glasses and I want to show them off. Hold on, I'm such a fan of these. I'm gonna show these in like another video too, but look how cute these are. I love the shape so much. So anyway, we stand. I think I'm gonna wear these for the rest of the day. New glasses are also so clean. Every time I update my prescription, I'm always reminded of how dirty my everyday glasses are. My mom's not around to yell at me to clean my glasses as an adult, which she would always do growing up. It was like a dinner time ritual. Her being like, Reagan, how can you see anything? And then washing them in the sink. Anyway, I love them. Okay, let's read. Hi friends, it is time to sit down and do some afternoon reading. Gonna get a fresh cup of coffee. I got this like local pecan coffee from like this mart near our house. Truthfully, it's so tasty. It smells so good too. So I'm going to enjoy this. Hi friends, so I'm about to sit down and I want to try to maybe finish Age of Swords by Michael J. Sullivan. But first I want to give you my thoughts and feelings about this book so far, because obviously I've read quite a bit. So this is book 2 to this very like classic pastoral fantasy series that I have just been loving. It's basically set in a fantasy world where there are humans and they live in kind of like small villages, they farm, they live their life. There's no like major cities or technological advances at all, and humans kind of war against each other quite a bit. And these wars are honestly usually fabricated by these gods that they worship, but these gods are not gods. They're called the Frey. They live for thousands of years. They have magic. They're very strong. They're seemingly invincible. But at the beginning of book 1, a human kills one of these Frey, which kind of turns a lot of things upside down. First off, the Frey themselves are kind of seeing this act of aggression and trying to figure out how they want to respond. They view humans as kind of like specks, bugs, if you will, groups to be controlled and to also kind of fight each other, which kind of keeps them in kind of non-progressed societies because they're constantly having to rebuild and start over again and again and again. In this novel, we are dealing with this obvious looming tension between the Frey and humans, but a lot of the conflict is maintained to one singular village, and we follow a variety of human characters living there, and they're trying to deal with like their immediate issues, as well as this looming threat of the Frey. We also follow some Frey characters, some dissenters and rebels, some kind of like not wanting to be a rebel, but just so disturbed by the direction that the current government is going in. And the Frey themselves are not perfectly unified. They're made up of a multitude of different tribes, and one tribe who uses something called the art, which is magical abilities, has been in control for a very long time. And they kind of view themselves as even like the best type of Frey, creating division and tension like within their own culture. And you follow a few characters that are still present in the capital, and this specific tension is really explored going into book 2, and kind of the political unease from a few very high and mighty and honestly like prejudiced characters are trying to overthrow the status quo, so this one group gets even more power. You kind of see how all these characters are interacting in book 1. There's this conflict, and truthfully the first book I loved the writing, I loved the characters, I loved the setup, I loved the pacing, so I was really looking forward to going to book 2. I also view like more classic pastoral fantasy to be something that feels very cozy to me, feels very homey, and I would definitely say this feels very Tolkien and like vibe. There are literally elves, dwarfs, and humans. So just even in the general setup, there's some similarities there, but they all kind of hate each other, clearly, based off of the setup. Going into book 2, the politics are really kind of brought to a natural next step. I love, again, the pacing in the series. I don't feel like Michael J. Sullivan is rushing anything, but we're kind of seeing the growth of human society, human cities, different human groups trying to work together to create this like larger human front to take on the fray. And it's really interesting because you're seeing humans trying to push themselves in like new and different directions, which is also going to breed conflict between these different, you know, villages and groups because they have different cultures, different ideologies, all of this stuff. Outside of kind of seeing the beginnings of what could be like one united human kingdom to take on this sort of fray conflict, we're also seeing like human innovation, which is an interesting ad. Like characters discovering language, characters discovering the wheel, characters discovering pockets. And I think it's such an interesting inclusion to show one, human ingenuity in terms of like, as you know, you realize one idea, like more ideas can come to you, but also to kind of give us context about where this current human civilization is, so we can see it sort of build throughout this entire series, and also kind of how the fray have kept the humans in kind of the dark ages for as long as they possibly could. So it's just cool. Book 2, we're kind of seeing the evolution of human alliance, but we're still following like a very classic quest with some other side characters. I've already spoken to the political tensions on the rise in the Frey Kingdom. There's just a lot of these very interesting individual storylines, but you also see how everything is very much interconnected because they're feeding each other in terms of motivation. I just love this world. I'm just attached to everyone. And I read it so quickly. Like, I want to marathon all of these books. I'm having a hard time having any type of self-control in terms of not doing that. But I, at the very least, have 150 pages left, so I can sit down and enjoy those now and contemplate when I will pick up the next book. I have quite literally 20 pages left of this book. I read 150 pages of this today. You would think I would just finish it, but I got emotional. I actually cried while reading this. It's still a cozy good time, but really intense there at the end. Oh my gosh, the escalation in the first 2 books. I am so hooked on this series, but I'll give you a final wrap up once I work up the strength to finish those last few pages. We got Taco Bell, and I bought various gingerbread house kits. I couldn't decide, so I said, get both. Row houses, traditional. And I think I got some funfetti, all sorts of treats. Hi friends, good morning. I woke up feeling very chipper. I'm making some gingerbread Starbucks coffee, which I'm really looking forward to. While that is brewing, I'm actually gonna make some AG1, just a little kickstart. Bon appetit. And I'm about to sit down and do some reading. I did finish Age of Swords yesterday and truly loved every single second of it. It got really intense in the second part of the book, but I do feel like it was able to maintain its vibe that I kind of fell in love with in the first place, and I'm so excited to read the 3rd book in this series. I feel truly addicted, which in itself is very fun. I'm gonna go ahead and start Amari and the Great Game, which is my middle grade selection for this video, and I'm really excited about this as well. Another book too, to a favorite fantasy series, so I'm hoping to maintain the success I've had. I've also read 170 pages so far for this vlog, which I also think is pretty dang good, so we're gonna keep the momentum going. And now that it's just Millie and I, these 2 girls are gonna cozy up, read, watch bad Christmas movies, and play Pokemon, Matilda. Sound good? Hello, it's me. I wanted to do a quick reading update. First off, look how cute this hardcover is of Amari and the Great Game. I'm also happy to report I read a very quick 50 pages. And I'm already loving this, for 1. But 2, just to be reading a middle grade book, it's been way too long since I've picked up middle grade, and I'm having a blast. There's just something nostalgic and just really delightful about the experience. That being said, this book starting out the gate strong. Intrigue is already there. The intensity is already there. If you're not familiar with this series, this follows our main character Amari, and in book 1, she basically discovers a ticking briefcase in her older brother Quentin's closet. Amari has never also stopped believing that her older brother Amari is still alive, despite what everyone tries to tell her. In this briefcase, there is an invitation to try out for the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs. She decides to accept in hopes of discovering answers about her brother. She arrives at this bureau. She is also informed that basically supernatural creatures exist, magic exists in all types and forms. And the cool thing about this bureau is that it, one, functionally acts as a school. We see Amari like enroll and then try to kind of try out and prepare for certain occupations. But on the flip side, it's also kind of like a government entity and like a bureaucracy of different occupations. So it's just an interesting thing at play. In this world, there is this like evil magician who has been kind of attacking the supernatural world for a long time. And that is kind of why her older brother Quentin has disappeared, as he was one of the agency's top investigators. And that is what Amari is also trying to become, just like her older brother. She wants to become an agent just like him. In book 1, we see Amari face so many different trials. Obviously, this is an entirely new place for her. Many of the students have been preparing for this their entire life. She's also one of the only girls of color at the school, so she is treated differently for that reason, as well as just kind of being mostly human her entire life. You see her have to overcome so many trials. You see her make friends, there's magic, and the plot was so gripping and the concept so strong. Like, again, this Bureau of Supernatural Affairs is such a great place to root this story. And because Amari herself is discovering her powers, and the complex nature of her powers kind of puts her in an additional tricky spot. Book 2 basically opens up right away. The books are kind of structured like school years, but it also appears there's going to be summer things going on as well, which I love the idea of because you can really progress with the character too. And we're just kind of back into Amari's life, and she already has obviously some supernatural knowledge under her belt, and it's cool to see her interact with that and how it kind of blends in everyday human society, from like witches to cyclops and all of these things. Amari also has a best friend named Elsie, who is like part dragon and is also like a genius when it comes to inventing. And the cool thing about the magic in this world is that it manifests in very different ways. So there's just a lot of uniqueness, and I loved the first one. And so far, the second one has immediately pulled me in. I just love Amari. I love this world, and I'm really curious to see what in the world is going to happen next, and also to see Amari take on this institution, this bureaucracy, and do all sorts of things. It's just incredible. So I read 50 pages very quickly this morning. I couldn't read for too long because I did have quite a bit of stuff I needed to get done, but I'm hoping to be done with everything I absolutely need to by kind of late afternoon. So I'll do a lot more reading obviously then and then later tonight, but I read those 50 pages so fast, so I'm hopeful that I'll be able to fly through a good chunk of this today. I also want to start the Alloy of Law tonight, kind of pivot between these two books, and just encourage myself to read as much as possible. I've already read 210 pages, which in one day, that is not bad. But I'm going to make lunch now, work more, and then we'll do more reading and I'll give you more of an update. Living a grilled cheese lifestyle still. We have soup, which I accidentally let boil, but I think it'll be okay. And I'm gonna start Love is Blind season 2, I think, with lunch. Faux fireplace, my book, and 2 Santa Hershey Kisses. We are about to relax. Oh, and I've reheated some of my gingerbread man coffee. Let's make dinner. And dinner is served. A classic sweet potato steak burrito bowl thing. Dinner eaten. I've laundered myself. I've done the dishes. I took out the trash. So now it's time to play Pokemon and watch some trash reality TV, and then I'm gonna read more of Amari and the Great Game. Plus, I might still start Alloy of Law. I feel like my evening responsibility, ooh, Millie just ate it. I feel like my evening responsibilities took more time than I thought, so I might just stick with Amari and then add Alloy of Law into the mix tomorrow. I got some serious leveling up done. And I also started season 2 of my Unorthodox Life, which is so addicting. The perfect pairing. Good morning, friends. I am up and dressed in the guest room of all places, but I wanted to show off my OOTD. I have been very successful with reading, and I want to do a bit of a reading update. I have passed the 200-page mark of Amari and the Great Game. I'm reading it so fast. The fun thing about middle grade is I feel like it doesn't bother me as much when the pacing is just like go, go, go. And I would say this book is definitely that. Obviously, B.B. Allison doesn't have to spend as much time with the world building component because a lot of the first book was obviously introducing us to this Burroughs who is really able to just right out the gate something dramatic has happened and a very dramatic solution needs to be done. And of course, Amari is at the heart of it. I really like this book because I do feel like it's integrating real world issues and prejudice and even like our own political landscape, especially in America. Like in this book, politicians using their platform to, instead of bring people together, create fear and division. And seeing that kind of happen in this fantasy setting, reminds us that these aren't, uniquely human issues, if you will. Apologies for the light change. It is much, much later. My camera died and then I was like, I'll let it charge, do more work. And then I just, I was in a productive zone and now it's like 7 p.m. But good news, I'm actually gonna sit down and read more Amari Cooper, but I need to finish my update from earlier. So as I was saying, the political aspect of this book I think is interesting, and I feel like it's a logical progression, especially going into book 2, because in this world basically everyone has like a magical power, but there's also people called magicians, and there was a group of magicians who basically tried to destroy the government and society and destroy the world and kind of harness all the power for themselves. And because they were evil, there is this prejudice that all magicians are evil. All magic associated with magicians are evil. So there's obviously different groups of magicians who are trying to figure out a way, one, to be represented in this society, even though they are met with a lot of suspicion. Or there's also different groups and factions that want to dismantle the current government because clearly it's, not accepting and they don't want to work with them. And then obviously, just like with any situation, there are people who do want to go to war and like take on and like not bargain with them at all and basically create a magician, society first, So definitely a lot of different personalities, perspectives kind of going on in this book. It's really intense, especially for a middle grade, I will say, but I feel like it reads really easily. There's also just something about middle grade I find so comforting. I don't know, just like the style, everything feels straightforward. Like people are straightforward in their emotions. They're obviously feeling emotions, and I always love to see that explored, especially in middle grade. When people are upset, they know they want to talk to their friend about something and they're avoiding it, but they're eventually going to talk to their friend and try to resolve it. It's just stuff like this. Like it feels, you can kind of hope at least that for the most part there's going to be a happy ending in middle grade, which is kind of what I feel like reading right now, if you know what I mean. So I'm really liking this book. I do feel like it is moving very fast. It's not bothering me too much, but I do feel like I'm missing kind of the world building and like the slow build of the plot that we kind of got in the first book, but I'm still very entertained by this. And I'm gonna go sit down right now. I'm gonna put my faux fireplace on and read another 100 pages. This book I wanna say is like 400 pages, so I'm gonna read 100 pages now, break, make dinner, play some Pokemon, and then I think I'm gonna start Alloy of Law tonight and then finish this book tomorrow. And then read more Alloy of Law. That's my plan. But once I hit another 100 pages, I'll have read almost 500 pages already for this vlog, which I think is pretty dang good. And today is Thursday. I'm like losing track of the days. It's kind of, everything's blending together right now. I'm wearing a new sweater vest, which I really like. I'm about to change in pajamas, so I thought I would just show it off to the world. But let's get reading. I will keep you guys updated on my thoughts and feelings. I also love to, in this book, just like with middle grade 2, like new characters are introduced, new friendships are beginning to be formed, like relationships are dynamic in this, which I think is great. Like there's definitely characters that fall into those classic type school bully, all these types of things, but I do like that B.B. Allison is giving characters opportunities for redemption and change and growth and all of that stuff. Everyone's flawed, even Amari, in a delightful way though, which I think is great, again, for middle grade. So anyway, let's go read and then let's go make dinner. Everyone is accounted for, the fireplace is on, and it's time to read more Amari Cooper. Guys, I have read, that looks better. I have read to page 300. I have 100 pages left of this book, and this has been a whirlwind. B.B. Allison is including some really fantastic tropes and just like plot elements I love to read. There's a trial element. There's also a magical education element as Amari tries to learn more about her powers. There's also this level of secrecy around magic, so like the pursuit of learning is really interesting and obviously a little bit dangerous, and I just love seeing like a group of characters work together to try to uncover some sort of mystery that's, you know, trying to be covered up by the establishment, using their skills, their specific powers, and obviously relying on the power of friendship to try to figure out what in the world is going on. It's just such a great setup, and it's working really well in this, which is also making this book a breeze to read. So yes, I've read to page 300. I'm gonna take a break now, make dinner. I already put the rice on. I'm making Spam for dinner. I wanted something quick and easy and comforting. That was what I was feeling. And now it's time for Pokemon. I've also started season 2 of My Unorthodox Life, and I am just flying through it. There's something about reality TV that I just can't stop watching. Y'all already know what's up. We're making Spam, and I've decided I'm gonna catch up on Survivor because I just remembered I have like 5 episodes to watch, so that should be fun. Bon appetit. I'm gonna top this with some sriracha. I was too lazy to even make a fried egg. It's gonna be great though. Santa Hershey Kiss time. Guys, it's late. I stayed up very late watching, or trying to catch up on Survivor. I still have 2 episodes left. This season went from like average to incredible so quickly, but I have my Kindle. I'm now gonna go start Alloy of Law in bed, get a good night's sleep. Wow, isn't this room feeling ultra cozy this evening? Cheers. Read, my little mini cozy readathon is going well. I'm about to start my 3rd book, which I think is great. I feel like I fell a little behind in the early parts of this month with reading, so I'm really trying to fit in as much as possible. So I'm looking forward to start this reread of Alloy of Law. I read it the 1st and 2nd time really fast, so I have a feeling the 3rd time will be maybe my fastest yet. So gonna get cozy now, gonna go grab Matilda and convince her it's time for bed. We'll see how that goes though. Let's decide on coffee together. I have Traditional. I have some pecan. I also have this gingerbread coffee, which has been pretty good. I also have my delicious single serves. I think I'm gonna make gingerbread. Feels very holiday, so let's go ahead and do this. Good morning. I accidentally made this coffee so strong. I think I'm gonna add some cream. I got some, let me see, where is it? Ah, yes. White mocha Starbucks creamer. Yay. Hi guys, I'm dressed. Very proud of that. I'm going to go do some work, but I wanted to do a reading update because I did read 80 pages last night of The Alloy of Law, which is a Mistborn novel. So the funny thing about the 2nd generation of the Mistborn series is there's 4 books. The first book, being The Alloy of Law, is technically not part of the trilogy that's connected to the Cosmere. It's more almost like a prequel book, or just introductory, or just really an introductory story to the characters. It doesn't mean it's bad. It is fun. It's much lower stakes, especially if you've read this trilogy. It's just interesting. Like, in comparison, this is by far my least favorite book in the Mistborn era, but it's also really fun and easy to read. And again, it like introduces us to Maximilian and Wayne and all of those types of characters. But I did want to like provide that context because I do think that's important. Era 2 Mistborn is very much like Wild Wild West vibes, and it's cool because you can see how the magic and the world has evolved with a significant passing of time. It's kind of like a flintlock fantasy, which in combination with the magic system is fascinating. So the Mistborn world has to do with the consumption of metals. Flintlock fantasy has to do with guns. So if you can move metals around, imagine how adding guns to that picture would kind of, I don't know, change and evolve the magic system. It's so freaking cool. The first book, I would say, is very like almost a little cheesy, a little stereotypical, but we're introduced to our main character, Maximilian, who is a lord, and for the past chunk of time, he's actually lived in an area called the Roughs. which is like outlaw land, again, wild, wild west vibes. He's kind of solving crime, taking in criminals, all of those things like bounties. But at the beginning of this book, he's gone back to his home and in the big city because he's actually like the heir to a lordship. So he has a lot of money, you know, he's playing vigilante, but he's actually a lord. And he swears off like any type of investigation in the future to try to get his house back under control because his uncle kind of brought it to ruin. But a series of crimes begins to rock the city and he can't help but to be sort of drawn back in. His sidekick is a character named Wayne, who is a hilarious foil to Waximilian, where Waximilian is obviously trying to pretend like he's not a lord. He is a lord. Like, he wears fancy clothes, he talks in a certain fashion, versus Wayne is not that. And so they contrast each other and have kind of a hilarious back and forth. And then another character we have is Steris, who is his like arranged marriage partner. And I love her evolution and character in this story. I think it's fantastic. She's super smart. But this series is such an interesting departure from Mistborn. The stakes, while significant, like they're trying to solve a series of robberies, it's not Mistborn. But if you stick with this series, starting with book 2, which is again technically the first book in the trilogy, things really escalate. And I think just as a concept, the world is so cool. But because the first book is really contained, it's such a fast read, which is why I enjoy rereading it. Like, anytime I'm kind of craving like a fun, just adventure-y sort of story, I always read The Alloy of Law. And again, because the 4th book just came out, I want to reread all the books in preparation for that, so everything is top of mind. But yeah, I read the 80 pages so fast. And a cool part of this too is part of why Waximilian gets involved again is because there's all these newspaper clippings. And in the book, and even the ebook, there are the literal newspaper clippings, which I think is really, really cool. But I have to go get some stuff done. I've read 80 pages of this, 300 pages of Amari and the Great Game, 170 pages of The Age of Swords. So I feel like I'm really succeeding in my reading goals. This afternoon, I'm gonna read a lot more. I'm gonna finish Amari, and I wanna get another good chunk of the way through this book. But I just wanted to give you some initial updates. But I gotta go. We are dressed today. I'm wearing this little like corduroy vest situation. Everything is made well, per usual. For lunch, we're making ramen. Making ramen using my favorite method. And of course, Shin Ramen supremacy. Do you ever pose for a thumbnail and then you look out your window, which you're directly next to, and your neighbor's just staring at you like this? What is she doing? And now, you know what? No, I'm gonna own it. I post YouTube videos on the internet. Sue me. Anyway, I'm about to go finish Amari and the Great Game right now. I finished work. It is Friday. It is time to relax, have a fresh cup of coffee, and finish reading. I'm gonna continue to take my thumbnail first, so hold on. Hold on. You might recognize this from when you clicked in. Hi friends, a successful reading update. I've officially finished Amari and the Great Game, which this book actually ended up being 422 pages, so plus the 80 pages I've read and the 170 pages I've read, I've basically read 670 pages so far for this cozy oriented reading vlog. Feels good and productive. So I wrapped up this book. I really enjoyed it. This book very much feels kind of like a set up book. The plot lines are very intense, but I felt like it was really serving to reveal the direction of the rest of the series, letting us know the villains, setting up the much larger conflict that's going to be at play, giving Amari time to kind of understand her own abilities, and creating like emotional stakes between her, kind of her arch nemesis, let's call him, and then also just like the new evil people entering the picture. The end was very explosive, like so many reveals, so much like table setting for the next book, but it was very, very satisfying. So I do feel like this was a successful book too. Like, it grew the plot, but it really kind of more served as a vehicle to like set things up for later installments. And I really cannot wait for book 3. I am just charmed by this series, and don't get me wrong, I keep saying it's charming, which it is, but this book is intense. Things happen, positive things don't always like work out for everyone, but still at the core of it, you have Amari, who's so easy to root for. She's such a hero. Her friends, the growth of friendship is delightful, and just kids sort of working together, like even within this borough, to take on more powerful people who are just doing wrong, are just wrong and bad people. And that's kind of the situation you have here. Amari's relationship and her love for her family is always very central to this book too, which I am delighted by. It's just like a really good fantasy middle grade series. And I'm looking forward to the next installment because things are gonna get wild, as I keep kind of alluding to. But Amari and the Great Game, I would give like a 3.75 4 stars. Again, not as good as the first book, but still fantastic. And like, if you haven't checked out this middle grade series, you should. A perfect, like, just such a great and delightful read. That being said, I'm just gonna focus on reading as much Alloy of Law as I can tonight. As I've mentioned, I've read 80 pages. I just wanna read it and finish it, but I'm gonna order takeout for dinner tonight. It's Friday. Have I mentioned that yet? So it's kind of a treat yourself day. But truthfully, I feel like my house is messy. So I'm gonna do a little bit of cleaning. Maybe I'll do a bit of a time lapse, but I wanna get this place feeling nice and picked up, and then kind of relish in like a cozy vibe. Does anyone else like to do that? Like, I wanna clean and make my space feel as nice as possible to then like settle into it perfectly. So that's my approach. That's what I'm gonna do right now. I'm gonna listen to some Maggie Rogers. We're gonna watch some Real Housewives, and I have so much laundry to do. When I say clean, I just have piles of clothes. Does anyone do that? Like, that is the thing I'm worst at. That is what I procrastinate the most doing. Like, I will clean clothes and then I will just have this clean clothes pile that just grows and grows and grows. And then the more it grows, the more I don't wanna deal with it. Anyway, I'm procrastinating literally right now by just filming this clip, but we're gonna go. I'm gonna deal with it now. Let's put away some laundry. Please don't judge me. It's gotten very out of control. I forgot to vlog it, but I got tacos for dinner and chips and queso, and I'm watching Survivor. I'm catching up. It's so incredible. It was like pretty mid in the middle. The last few episodes have been spectacular. So truly thriving right now. Alloy of Law time. Let's get to it. So the good news is, over the course of this vlog, I was able to read almost 800 pages, which I think is pretty good, especially because your girl is behind. So I'm trying to have a spectacular reading month in terms of numbers for the month of December. But let's go ahead and wrap up everything I was able to read. So I actually had 170 pages left of Age of Swords. I love this series. I just feel like it's the perfect mix of like classic fantasy quests with great characters. I love sort of the ancient pre-civilization setting and kind of watching the buildup of human society taking on enemies, all of those things. Book 2 was super intriguing. I don't know if I loved it as much as book 1, but I do really feel like it was a solid installment in this world. Speaking of book 2, I also read Amari and the Great Game. I read the entirety of this from beginning to end. It was 422 pages. This was great, action-packed. Amari is such a fantastic character. On and on about how much I love the concept of this world, the Borough of Supernatural Affairs. Book 2 was really about kind of setting the table and setting the stakes and introducing us to kind of a larger cast of equal characters for the rest of this series, but it was a great installment. Was not boring by any means. It was very, very fast paced, and I just think this is a great new middle grade series. I can't wait to read the third book. And then I was also able to read 50% of The Alloy of Law by Brandon Sanderson. This book just reads so fast to me. It's by no means my favorite Brandon Sanderson book. It honestly might actually be my least favorite Brandon Sanderson book. It's funny because I almost gave up on this series because of this book, and it's not because it's bad. It's just okay. But like, I enjoy rereading it because it is such an easy read, and I also know how fantastic later installments of the series are, so it feels worth it to me. But it's always fun to kind of reread book 1 because it is so standard, and I honestly never thought I would ever describe a Brandon Sanderson book as standard. Like the concept's cool. It's cool to see the Mistborn world kind of evolve in new directions, especially with this sort of Wild West setting. But the characters are very like stereotypical, this sort of wax and wane pairing as they're solving crime. It's entertaining and it's fun, but it's very surface, and even the female characters, especially in book 1, feel very surface, and the mystery is like very surface. It's like a solid 3-star read, but again, it reads so fast, which is also why I felt like rereading it. And the later books are amazing, which I also want to reread. So it's like such a funny contrast almost, but I did read 50% of this, and I'm always shocked and amazed by how much I forget about books when I pick them up again. I'm always like, oh yeah. I'm a little worried about my memory, but needless to say, I read 767 pages over the course of this week, which I think is great. And I was able to get through a good chunk of my TBR for the month. I think I'm going to pivot, which you'll probably see in my next video, and read so many short books because I still have faith that I can hit my 100 goal books, but more on that at another time. Big shout out again to this video sponsor, which is AG1, incredible nutritional drink that I have been using for well over a year now, and I can definitely say I am a huge fan. And quick reminder that my link below will give you a free 1-year supply of D3K2, 5 free travel packs of AG1 with your first purchase. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you soon with another one soon. Goodbye.